Hey guys, how you doing? Scotty from scotsbasslessons.com. I see students all the time practicing arpeggios, scales, pentatonics, technique. They're racing up and down the fretboard, but there's one huge thing in their power that's holding them back. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. Let's check it out on the lesson. So what do I mean by I'm seeing, people working on the right stuff? It sounds like they're working on the right stuff, the arpeggios, the chord tones, the scales, the transcribing, the technique. How can these guys be working on all this stuff but they're holding themselves back at the same time? And it's because they've forgotten ultimately what we're doing all this for. We're doing it to make music. We're actually, it isn't about scales, it isn't about arpeggios. All this stuff is amazing to learn. And in no way am I saying that you shouldn't be learning that, because if you've been following me for any time at all, you know I'm a total freak when it comes to chord tones, scales, arpeggios, knowing how to actually make bass lines and understand what we're doing. But the thing that I see people falling down on over and over and over again, and I have been guilty of this in the past, is that they forget that we're learning all this information to make music, to actually use this in live situations with bands and use this as a tool for communicating with who we're playing with and the audience. We get so stuck in the trenches learning the nitty gritty that we forget what we actually started off learning this instrument for, which was, to make great music, have fun, and ultimately do something that's worthwhile and create great music. So I want to take this time to say, if you're not already applying what you're learning on the instrument to actually making music, now is the time to, pick yourself up on it and just think, okay, I need to get all this stuff that I've been working on, I need to actually make some great music with it. Because I see guys all the time sitting in shops and they can machine gun slap 1,000,000 notes a minute and they can tear around they can tear about the fingerboard, technique's frightening, but then I ask them to sit down and play, a simple 12-bar blues. I asked them just to sit down and play a blues with me, and they're lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know the sequence. They've been focusing so much on the building blocks that helps us do this that they've actually forgotten to, build the house. If you think about all these arpeggios and technique exercises and scales, these are the building blocks that we need to put together. We need to master them and then put them together. But we need to put them together to build something. Let's use, in this analogy, a house. Well, we need to put all this stuff together to make music. So make sure that you're not missing out on that, because it is ultimately the last piece in the puzzle. It's where we're all pointing at. Everybody's pointing in that same direction. We all want to make great music. So if you've got friends, get together, jam with them, even have group practice sessions. They're really great, where everybody's maybe practicing the same song, or well, hopefully you'll be practicing the same song, but you'll be, talking about specific techniques you can use over that song, and you practice it in a group setting. And if you're anything like me, I don't want to just do this on a weekend or, on an evening when my friends are free. I want to do this all the time when I want to do. And that's why I use play-alongs all the time. We're living in an era now where you can play with some of the best bands in the world from your couch at home. At any time you want, you just plug your bass in, hit your tape player, not your tape player, that's for us old school guys. Hit like if you're still rocking the tape players, guys. But you hit your MP3 player and you can play with some great bands. And remember, if you're an Academy member over at scottsbasslessons.com, we now have a play-along library that is dedicated to this. You know, the play-along library has multiple play-along tracks in there with tab and notation, and obviously the play-along track. And there's a video of me playing the track that you can ultimately learn yourself and then play along, so you can see what I'm doing and then try and recreate that. In fact, at the end of this video, I'm going to show you an entire clip from the play along library so you can get a bit of a taster for it. And remember, when you're doing this, it's really important that you're learning full songs and not just snippets as well. Okay, I see a load of students that can play little tidbits of songs, but not entire songs. And it's really important for your development as a bass player and musician that you're learning full songs. It's a skill in itself, you know, just like playing scales and, you know, playing slap bass, you know, learning a full song and being able to memorize that and keep that in there is a skill in itself. So although, you know, it is, you're going to want to learn a little tidbit here and a little tidbit there and sort of like jump between songs. Really focus on one song and maybe work on it for a month and use it as a study piece, like the classical players use etudes. Just focus on that one piece for an extended period of time and make sure you master it. Now, if you're not a member of the Academy, you can go out, check out the Academy. There's a link below that will tell you all about it. And you can also grab a 14-day free trial as well. So you can try out the whole thing for free and see if it's for you. And also, maybe you don't want to become an Academy member for some crazy reason. Obviously, you should want to become an Academy member. But if you don't, go to YouTube and check out some of the play-alongs on there, because I'm sure you'll be able to find some. What I would say is when you're looking for play-alongs on YouTube, try and find, again, full songs with different sections, not just a 4-bar groove, okay? Now, don't get me wrong, playing over a 4-bar groove is great, but what we're talking about today is learning songs and, you know, using this stuff that we're learning, the chord tones, the scales, the arpeggios, learning in context, okay? It's just like when we learn to speak. Okay, you know, we learn to speak by talking to others around us, mainly our parents and their parents' friends, maybe our friends in nursery. This is what we have to do with the bass and any instrument. Okay, we need to learn how to use the words that we're learning, just like when we learnt to speak. When you're learning scales or arpeggios, these are the words we need to be able to use. We need to learn how to use these in context. And, you know, it's a real skill in itself, and it's what I see people falling down all the time. So hopefully I've given you a bit of motivation to kick you into putting this stuff into action. I'm going to leave you with a clip from the Play Along library over at scottsbasslessons.com within the Academy. Check it out, go try it out. It's totally free for 14 days. There's some awesome stuff going on there. And other than that, take it easy and I'll see you in the shed.